A Kentucky man, convicted of ripping off his ex-girlfriend's scalp out of rage and ordering his pit bull to attack her in September 2015, was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Police called it one of the most vicious attacks they've ever seen, an atrocity of brutality and cruelty. A pretty young single mother left grotesquely mutilated, beaten beyond recognition, and bleeding to death. Marilyn Stanley, who was 27 at the time, always wears a cap now so nobody, including herself, can see the disfiguring scars of her ordeal. "I don't look at myself in the mirror with my head uncovered," said Marilyn. She used to have a head full of beautiful blonde hair and was living a happy life, raising a young son on her own in Burlington, Kentucky. That is, until she met 31-year-old Zachary Gross. The two began casually seeing each other. Within months, it had turned into a serious relationship. Marilyn's mother, Linda, didn't approve. "There was something I didn't like about him," Linda said. "I didn't trust him. I didn't think he was any good." And sure enough, Marilyn said Zach would reveal himself to be jealous, possessive and controlling. She says he started to get mean. The first time was being put outside of his house, and then he grew increasingly more violent and abusive. Went from that to being pushed down the front porch steps. Soon he was beating me regularly. I got a broken nose and 2 black eyes. After that I got choked out. I told him, "Dude, you said you were going to kill me. I'm done." But Zach wasn't about to let Marilyn go without a fight. Texting her repeatedly just before the scalping, he wrote in part, "To my love, best friend forever, soulmate, lover. I hate that you're scared of me, because you shouldn't have to be scared of the one you love. I'm here to protect you and give you all that you need and everything you need, and then some. I'll love you with all my heart." He'd been telling me for like days over text that he wanted to talk to me, and when I refused, he became obsessed and started stalking me, following me everywhere I went, and even getting a job at the same book warehouse where I worked. Marilyn said Zach got so crazy over her rejection of him that he turned up on her doorstep at 6 a.m. one day. So when I opened the door, I just get punched in the face, and when I screamed for help, he just got even crazier. He jumped on the roof of my car until it caved in, and he got a tire iron and smashed out the windscreen and my back window. Marilyn says she was afraid Zach might kill her if she called the police. It didn't seem like he was going to stop, she said. Finally, she agreed to meet Zach in a desperate attempt to calm him down. "I literally didn't know what else to do," she said. The moment she walked through the door of his home in September 2015, she says she was greeted with a sucker punch to the face. I asked him what that was for, and he brought up pictures of me and my son taken at a park. It was because another guy had taken the picture and posted it and tagged me on Facebook. And she said Zach continued to beat her up. I turned my back on him, so he'd be punching me in the back of the head and not the face. And then I ran for the door, but he picked me up and I was like mid-air trying to throw myself down to the ground so I couldn't be dragged into his room. Marilyn says she feared she might not get out of that room alive, and I grabbed onto the door frame, she said. Her life was about to be plunged into an unspeakable living nightmare. Next thing she knew, she was on the ground in front of the closet being straddled across the waist, and her arms were pinned down at her side. She said that Zach continued to hit her, but she managed to grab a knife that she brought with her in case she had to defend herself against him. But before she could use it, Marilyn said she suddenly had a second attacker on top of her. While Zach's dog lunged at her and bit off most of her right ear, Zach continued to hit her. Marilyn was suddenly unconscious. The next thing I remember is sitting up, Marilyn said. The dog was gone and Zach was kneeling in front of me, kind of like smirking, and he said, "Look at you, you're bald. Now nobody's going to want you. Go and look at yourself in the mirror." Marilyn was too afraid to look. I didn't look in the mirror when he told me to. I looked kind of in the direction of it but past myself. I could see blood and my hair was wet, and I didn't really think that my scalp was completely gone because I don't remember it being cut off. I thought maybe some of my hair got maybe in splotches, ripped out or something. But Marilyn said that Zach wasn't finished with her yet. He kicked me in the stomach and told me to lay on my side. He goes, "I'm going to break your ribs," and he stomped down on my ribs. They didn't break. He stomped on my ribs again, and I heard them crack, but I didn't feel it at that point. She endured this for 2 hours. Marilyn said Zach Gross's brutal bloodlust was finally satisfied. He helped me wipe the blood off my face and told me it's okay, he's done, he's not going to hurt me anymore. I asked him to call an ambulance, but he said no, because they would take his dog. Instead, Marilyn said Zach gave her a t-shirt to cover her wounds and a hoodie to pull over her head, then handed her a plastic shopping bag. And I said, "I don't want this. What am I going to do with this?" She didn't realise it contained her scalp. He didn't take her to a hospital, but rather drove her past her mum's home. It was there where Marilyn's attacker would add the ultimate insult to her injuries. He asked me if he could have a kiss when he dropped me off. All I felt was the weight of my ear, so I was propping it up with my hand, she said. I didn't feel like I had cracked ribs. I didn't feel like my scalp was gone. I didn't feel like my face was 3 times its size. She held up the bag when she came into the yard and said, "You know, my hair's in this bag," said Marilyn's mother, Linda. It wasn't until the ambulance got Marilyn to hospital that her mother learned, to her horror, that nearly half her daughter's scalp was in that bag. When somebody said that somebody was scalped, I mean, it's like unheard of in this day and age, really, said Linda. Marilyn was barely conscious when she was told she'd been scalped alive. I remember the doctor coming in to tell me that my hair's never going to grow back, she said. Her life hung in the balance as she underwent emergency surgery to repair a severed artery. She would undergo several more operations before doctors finally succeeded in patching her back together with skin grafts from her leg. The whole thing is a scar, my whole upper thigh, said Marilyn. It was a miracle that Marilyn Stanley was still alive after being beaten, mauled by a pit bull, and scalped by the man that she once called her boyfriend. But despite a mountain of evidence against him, Zachary Gross denied he scalped and disfigured her, blaming the hideous crime on his pit bull. The news said that I held down a girl and scalped her hair off, but it's been proven now that my dog did that, Zach said in a phone interview with a nationally syndicated radio station. He called him from jail after his arrest to declare his innocence. They arrested me before they even got a statement, Zach said on the show. It's so stupid I can't even think to respond to it, said Marilyn. And Boone County, Kentucky Sheriff Detective Brian Cochran said the evidence immediately spoke for itself. Right out of the gate, we had suspicions that this wasn't just a dog bite case, said Detective Cochran. Investigators who searched Zach's home found a trail of blood leading to his bedroom, where Marilyn was scalped, to the bathroom, where he tried to force her to look into the mirror, ridiculing her appearance. It was on the floor, on the walls, it was in the bathtub, it was on the towel rack, said Cochran. But the most incriminating piece of evidence was a pink knife. It was in the dresser drawer covered in hair and blood, according to Cochran. So the argument was that he was hiding the knife, said prosecutor Leanne Beck. It's the same knife that Marilyn put in her pocket for protection when she went to abusive ex-boyfriend's home the day she was attacked, but she had dropped while he had her pinned on his bedroom floor, beating her. Our theory was that Zachary Gross got possession of the knife, he used it on her, said Beck. Investigators will also learn that Zach had a lengthy rap sheet of violent crimes committed against other women, including 2 assault in the 4th degrees, 1 domestic violence, the other 1 spouse abuse, said Beck. Assistant Prosecutor Beck said the only hole in the case against Gross was that Marilyn was unconscious during her actual scalping. The last thing Marilyn recalls is lying on the floor with Zach punching her and the dog tearing off part of her right ear. Other than that, the dog didn't do anything else, said Marilyn. Investigators said Marilyn's other injuries appeared to be inflicted by a dog's teeth. That finding will be supported at Gross's trial by Dr. William Kismiller, who operated on Marilyn's scalp. The multiple injuries to the scalp were so severe that replantation was not a reasonable option, Kismiller said on the stand. Because of the straight nature of the edges, it seemed to be more favouring a sharp object rather than a dog bite. The doctor's testimony was a crushing blow to Gross's defence team. That was the defence's theory the entire trial, that it was a dog attack, said Beck, and Marilyn herself took the stand at Gross's trial. Marilyn also stepped down from the stand to show the jury her horrific scalping wounds. This was really hard for her, but I think it had a huge impact on the jury to see the permanent disfigurement he caused, said Beck. The only one apparently unmoved by Marilyn's testimony was Zach. He didn't seem very remorseful about what he did to Marilyn, said Beck. He made a gesture with his hands that was not appropriate for court. The judge held him for contempt for that action. The jury quickly returned a verdict of assault in the 1st degree. Assistant Prosecutor Marilyn Beck asked the judge to give Zachary Gross the maximum sentence. 20 years is what's appropriate for discalping a human alive, she said, but Gross remained unrepentant at his sentencing hearing, still proclaiming his innocence. I wanted to go to trial so everyone could hear that Marilyn never said I cut her hair off. Marilyn never said I told my dog to attack, and I feel horrible for what happened, Gross said. I feel that the verdict was wrong. During the sentencing, Zach said to the judge, "It is what it is. I'm not asking for your mercy. Just give me the 20. I don't need a lecture." Marilyn suffers from permanent nerve damage and underwent half a dozen surgeries following the attack. She now wears a beanie constantly to hide a disfigured scalp and can no longer grow hair.